Trying to get on here and talk with all of you. Not sure if I'm on air or am I not, but I'm going to start with hello, guys. You're watching Ask Indigo on the Small Business Network. We're going to talk about mental health and awareness. It's a great topic to talk about. A lot of people are experiencing this issue when it comes to mental health and knowing when you're okay and when you're not. I chose to talk about this topic because where there's a stigma around this, and many people don't really talk about the stigma. They don't really talk about like what we experience every single day when it comes to our mental health, how we um deal with others and how we deal with our every day-to-day world. Like it's already hard enough to have to worry about your mental state, your well-being, but then to also think about the mental state and well-being of others as well. You have to focus on trying to be you in a crazy world, in a crazy um surroundings. So the topics today are understanding mental health. Exploring mental health truly means and what's important about it. Well, mental health plays a big role with our everyday life. If we can't think straight, then we can't function normally. If we can't collect our own thoughts and we can't collect, our own feelings and express what we are truly going through or dealing with, it's hard for us to maneuver through life because those constant issues are replaying over and over in our mindsets. And we carry a lot of this burden in our heart. So mental health plays a big role with like everything you do in life. If you have children, you have to think about your mental health, and then you have to think about your children's mental health, and then you have to think about, the things that you say and the way that you move and what you do and how you react and respond to others. And, you know, um when you're not all put together, it kind of leaves you stuck and lost. Mental health plays a big role in like every aspect of your life. And this is a topic that I chose also because I struggled with mental health pretty much my entire life. Um, so I was a child that grew up with a mother who had a learning disability and drug addiction. And then I was also a child that was bullied um, for my mother being an addict and for my mother, also involved with other things that weren't the greatest. Um, and my mental health was triggered because from a very young age until adulthood, it was hard for me to, figure out who I was and what I wanted and how I felt because I wasn't allowed to express what I was feeling and I wasn't allowed to express, you know, what I was seeing or how it was making me feel on a regular basis. Like I had to be really quiet about what I was seeing or experiencing and what I was feeling because there was always that stigma of, well, if you start talking about certain things that they're going to take you away or they're going to lock you up or, this, that, and the other. And so a lot of what I was feeling and experiencing, I kind of kept to myself for a very, very long time. And that didn't help me. Um, and then, when you're a child that turns into an adult that doesn't deal with repressed feelings and repressed memories and trauma, you tend to carry that with you your entire life with not knowing how to communicate with others, not knowing how to present yourself, not knowing how to speak up for yourself, not knowing how to see, the issues in yourself. You struggle with understanding why people would approach you and say that, there's an issue with you when it comes to communication, when it comes to expressing your feelings, um, and just being in relationships in general. And it doesn't mean necessarily um, relationships as far as a partner, just relationships in general with anybody. That's friendship, that's family, that's partner in general. When you don't deal with trauma due to um anything really, like, where do I want to leave you with this discussion. There's a lot of different areas we could be going to when it comes to this discussion. Um, Mental health can be a lot of things in a lot of different areas when it comes to different people in their lives. Um, Mental health stress can be just someone physically just not speaking about things that hurt them or not speaking about things that make them uncomfortable or nervous. Nervousness plays a big role with mental health. Depression plays a big role with mental health. Anxiety, panic attacks as well. PTSD. PTSD is post traumatic stress syndrome. Post traumatic stress syndrome is something that is um, a behavior that happens with you when you've gone through something traumatic in your life and you don't know how to move past that trauma. Post traumatic just means like something that past tense happens that you're still carrying and you're struggling with living a normal everyday to life because your mindset's always going back into the what if or the worst case scenario. Your mindset struggles with staying focused on everything's okay and you'll be all right and I don't have to panic or feel afraid. PTSD doesn't work like that. You can have a panic attack disorder in the middle of nowhere for absolutely no reason, and then question yourself, why am I having a panic attack? Well, you're having a panic attack because you haven't dealt with that post traumatic stress, that trauma from childhood up until adult. So a lot of us as adults, when we get older and we don't deal with um, trauma, we tend to carry it in a lot of different ways by we're not very talkative, we're introverts, we kind of stay to ourselves and we don't really allow others in a way that can hurt us, although a lot of us tend to keep that mindset of everyone wants to hurt us because it's the post traumatic trauma. But this can all be helped and healed over time. What helps to heal with when it comes to trauma or PTSD is to first write it out. Write it out and express the ways that it does affect you. I get post traumatic stress symptoms of I tend to have a hard time breathing. My heart starts to go really fast. I tend to get really sweaty for no reason. Um, for some reason, I tend to shut down and back away from people. I don't like big crowds. I don't like a big environment with a lot of people. This is all due to post traumatic stress. Post traumatic stress and depression they go hand in hand. So depression is more of like it's a mental imbalance. And that just means that a couple of things, your hormones are not balanced. So depression can set on. If you're someone who's like me who struggles from severe like pain and discomfort, that can bring on depression and very negative thoughts. And if you're dealing with like really sad things or very toxic things in your everyday environment, that can cause depression. Depression can literally be a massive range of things, and in any category, to be honest. A lot of the times there's individuals that catch, well, that because you can't catch depression, but you can develop depression over time. And anxiety is another form of mental health, because anxiety is when people tend to have this anxious, unsettling, or nervous feeling all the time. Sometimes they don't even realize they're having it or why they're having it or what caused it or what triggered. Whenever they have those moments, I definitely say to write down what you were feeling, write down what you were doing, write down what happened prior to you beginning to have this type of a feeling so that you can kind of pinpoint and see what's going on. Another great thing to do when it comes to mental health and awareness is also understanding that it's okay to not be okay. it's okay to not feel your best, and it's fine to say sometimes, I don't have it all together. I don't know where to start. I don't always feel the greatest, but I'm choosing to still get up and move and make those necessary steps forward to change and heal and get better and maybe unburden myself with a lot of these things that I hold myself hostage to. Um, Reoccurring signs of mental health disorders can go through a massive range. There's schizophrenia when it comes to mental health. Now, schizophrenia is a little bit different because that's more of a seeing and hearing things that are not actually there. And there's a difference between those who are spiritually gifted that see, sense, and hear and feel things that are not there versus someone who is mentally unstable, and is if you're seeing things or hearing things that are telling you to do really horrible things, then it's a big chance of possibility that you could have a schizophrenia, which is a mental problem. um, if you're a person who happens to not really understand your feelings as far as like you're gonna have high lows and you're gonna have low days. So high days is where you're really pumped up in a good mood, happy, rejoiceful, a go getter, and then you're gonna have low days where you're lazy and don't want to do nothing and frustrated, angry, and moody. When you have those highs and those lows, that's bipolar disorder. Um, and that could be treated. And then you have split personality disorders, which is a mental disorder as well. It's when a person doesn't really understand who they are as a person, so they give themselves alter egos to fit whatever scenario needs to be fit for that problem they're having. So if they're frustrated, then they'll create a persona within themselves that knows how to handle this type of problems. Or if they're a sensitive person, then they'll create a persona inside of them that knows how to handle these sensitive topics. um Split personality mental disorder is just a person who struggles to find their identity, so they kind of create multiple identities to fit every part that they need to fit within their lives. um then you have we said anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder. Um, oh my gosh, that's just a few that I can think of on the top of my head. But there's a lot of different categories when it comes to mental health. It doesn't just necessarily have to be um, disorders in general. A person that deals with mental health is not going to talk about what they're experiencing on a day to day basis. A person with mental health is not going to express what they're feeling to others out of embarrassment, shame, rejection, or simply because they don't realize that they're suffering from depression or they're suffering from a mental disorder that can be treated. A lot of the time when you have a mental disorder, it can be treated. And it doesn't necessarily have to be treated with medication. It's just medicated mentally by affirming how you speak and changing the way you feel and maybe switching up your routine a bit. Getting more out into nature can help you with your mental. Reading more books can get you more in tune with your mental. Meditation is like the biggest thing I can definitely speak on when it comes to mental health. Like when your mind's already crowded with all the things that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and when your mind's crowded with all the things that you have experienced through others, and you got to go to work and you have to go to school and you have to go outside in the world and talk to people out there, and then you have to deal with tasks and you got to be the go-getter and the go-doer, and then the person that's a lot mentally. Like you're already trying to figure out how to be you, and then I have to be me in a lot of other areas. I have to be, depending on if you're a mother, you have to be a mother, you have to be a father, you have to be a teacher and a coach and a counselor and a cook and a doctor. That's a lot of jobs in just one person. And mentally, I don't know how I can handle it. And, my son has this conversation with me often where he's like, "Mom, I don't understand how you can um know so much and do so much and function." It's a job. It's a job. So I can definitely compare when it comes to others that are struggling with these type of issues mentally. Like, it's a hard job first off to just be yourself. You got to get up and get yourself together and say, "Okay, I'm okay. I'm okay and I'm going to go out in the world and I'm going to pretend I'm okay and I'm going to put on this disguise, this face, and I'm just going to go on in life." And it's not that easy. It's really not that easy because if you're already dealing with something that's frustrating, and then on top of that, you're already struggling with your own mental capacity, and then you have to take on the world, that'll lead anybody to lose it. Um, and with everything that's going on in the world, how can we function normally without having to worry about everything? The prices of food, the prices of gas, the prices of bills, the prices of rent. Trying to run a business, trying to take care of a family. It's a lot. It's really a lot on the mental health. So when it comes to like breaking the stigma, start talking about your issues. Don't worry about those that don't understand you. If they don't understand you, they're not for you. They weren't meant to understand you. They're not. It's not that serious. Start seeking those that are going through something similar to what you're experiencing. Do feel the way that you feel. Want to know more about what they're feeling and expressing to others. Start joining a group. Make your own. Connect with other people. When you can start talking to others and express what you're feeling and what you're going through, you'll be surprised the amount of people that are also experiencing and going through the same thing you're going through and would love to conversate with you about what they're going through. Then you can break free from this stigma of thinking, well, I can't tell anybody what I'm going through and I can't express what I'm experiencing because, I'm going to get attacked for feeling the way that I feel or saying what I'm saying. Stop that. Everyone is going through something. We're all experiencing pain and we're all experiencing rejection and we're all experiencing some form of like downfall or setback in our lives. And yes, you're going to be dealing with those feelings of not resentment but like repressed happiness. It's like bad enough we repress like all our feelings, but then we tend to repress being happy because when you're dealing with mental health, to be happy in front of others that are also going through something mentally, we tend to tell ourselves, "Well, we're not allowed to be happy because someone else is not happy." No, 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 no. Your responsibility is for you, your mental health, and what you need. No one else, and you can't help everyone. If you could barely help yourself, don't try to help anyone else. But if you feel like you have information that can help someone else based on what you've been experiencing, then go right ahead and start sharing on. Because the stigma's over. Like a lot of us are going through depression, and a lot of us are dealing with anxiety and panics. A lot of us are going through, our ups and downs of everyday life and trying to focus and just trying to get through life the best that we can. But to keep yourself in this mindset thinking that no one's gonna understand and we're not gonna all come together in the same page to talk about these things, this needs to be spoken up more. There's so many men and women out here and children that are struggling with mental health every single day and it's not being talked about. And then they go and they do something traumatic because they don't feel like they're being heard or respected or the information is not being received. For a big okay, so between childbirth until about 16, I struggled with depression really bad. And I came up from a family where I was raised with my grandparents, and my mom wasn't taking care of me because of her addiction, and because of her mental health, not her mental health, her learning disability. And so I grew up in a home where there was a lot of abuse. Like I saw abuse pretty much almost every single day. and there was multiple people in the house that all have a different form of addiction at the time. And so, as a child growing up, seeing abuse and addictions and craziness, I was kind of messed up. I was afraid to live life. I was afraid to speak on things outside of the home on what I was going through. It would have been crazy if I would have went to school and I would have been like, when they asked me, "So, are you okay?" And they go, "Not really." I'm seeing abuse and violence and craziness at home. Then they would have took me away so quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I was threatened a lot to like not talk about what was going on at home. So even to this day, I still struggle with like feeling comfortable enough to talk about what I went through and to express my truths because I went through this. I went through the craziness. And then not only was I dealing with the craziness at home with the craziness with, the abuse from others. I wasn't physically getting abused, although I was getting my butt whooped when I needed it. I wasn't getting abused, but I was watching others be abused, and I was watching others dealing with addictions, and that was really hard for me to watch as a teenager and as a child. And then people that were close to me, like my mom, and I'm not gonna blast people, but other people that were in my life. So it was really hard for me to like take that all in, and then as a child, I had to deal with all that. Can't talk about it, can't express it. Then I had to go to school, and I had so going to school, there was 2 routes. There was, the straight route, which was really simple, straightforward, go straight to school. And then there was a back route, which kinda had to, do a couple of streets in, you had to make a bunch of turns, and it was a little longer. So I used to meet up with the rejection crew. It was a group of us that we were just the rejects, and we used to walk down the back streets to avoid the main streets because they were also going through things with their family as well. And I didn't want to go through the main street because that's like where my mom did her thing. And everybody knew her, and not in a good way. And the teachers and some of the parents, they used to talk about my mom, and they used to talk about me, and they used to say, "Well, stay away from her because her mother's, this, that, and the other, and her mom does drugs." And it was really hard. And then I had a cousin that went to school with me too. And then that cousin did not make life easier for me as well because they kind of like would talk about me as well. And it got the boys to start being very fresh with me. And that created such a depression in me because it's like, damn, I'm already dealing with all of this at home, and I'm already dealing like with my mom embarrassing me on a regular basis. But then now I have my cousin that doesn't help and is encouraging the boys to do really messed up things to me, and the girls are picking on me because I'm that girl with the mom with the issue. And so when I say depression, I was beyond depression. I wanted to X myself out of the existence at that point. And I struggled, and I went through counseling, and I had been in the hospital a few times because I couldn't handle what was happening in just everything in my life. I was very young, dealing with everything that was happening at home. Then I was dealing what I was dealing with in school, and then I was dealing with that in the neighborhood. So I had a lot of friends, but I didn't have a lot of friends. Like I had all the rejection friends. Um but I didn't have like the popular life because I was considered a reject. I guess that's what when you consider yourself a black sheep. And so, I carried that on into adulthood to where when I was like in my early 20s, I struggled with relationships. So when I had finally got out of being a teen and got away from like all the craziness I was dealing with at home, um, and entering into my like early 20s, I struggled with relationships. It was hard for me to like let people in. And it was hard for me to know what to look for in a relationship because I was around so much abuse and I was around so much craziness that I didn't know what to look for when it came to something that was positive. Um, and how to accept people in my life that were positive as well. And when it comes to mental health, when you go through so much trauma, especially as a child, you tend to carry that into adulthood to where you struggle to interact with others. Um, and have communications with others because one, you don't know their agenda and where they're trying to go when it comes to you. And then our mindsets kind of keep us stuck in this phase of like we can't trust anybody, and that's not always the truth. But self-sabotage plays a big role. Like we tend to self-sabotage ourselves, especially when we're dealing with mental health, because our mind tells us that we can't trust anybody and we cannot let anyone in. And we can't tell anyone what we're experiencing as well. And that's not true. Um, you have to definitely learn how to speak in your truth, stand in your truth, be comfortable being in your truth, even if others may have a hard time accepting that. It's your story. It's your life. It's your experiences. It's what you're going through. And no one really has the right to tell your version of the story. It's your story. You tell it because you experienced it. And that's another thing. When it comes to mental health, if you're a person that was like me growing up yet again in a setting where it was really bad. So I also grew up in a family setting where I didn't want to be around the family because I was always reminded that my mother who it was my mother, and my mother had issues that my mother had in her life, and I guess a lot of that they were expecting me to become her, and I wasn't allowed to be me and find me and see what I wanted. It's like everyone else had a plan of what I wanted and what I needed in my life to be me, and I end up being the opposite of what everyone else thought. Sadly, it forced me to step away from a lot of people because I didn't want to have to keep dealing with that mental damage that it was doing to me. Mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, I felt like I had to completely change who I was to finally step into who I was meant to be versus the stigma of I was going to be something everyone else wanted me to be. And that was not okay in my mind, and that was not okay in my mindset, and so that had to change. So, when it comes to self-care and practices and supporting others, self-care when it comes to mental health, start building mantras. Start telling yourself on a regular day, I love me. I love what I'm doing and I love what I will be doing. I can achieve. I am achieving. I will achieve. I am a doer. I can do it. I will do it. I am in control. You're in control now. Everything you say and do, you're in control. Especially if you're an adult now, you're in control. Whatever happened in the past, you have to learn how to start telling yourself, especially if you were young. I was young, and do this in the mirror. I was young and I had no control and I couldn't, stand up for myself and I couldn't do anything outside of just staying in my place. And I forgive myself for not being able to correct the wrongs in my life. And I choose to now hug this old version of myself and love this old version of myself and welcome the new version of who you want to be and not what anything else trying to hold you into. When you can start telling yourself more positive things, start loving yourself a little bit more by affirming that things are okay and things are getting better. And things don't have to be perfect. But as long as you put a mindset that says, okay, it's not perfect, but I can fix this. Don't keep yourself in this stagnant feeling of I'm stuck, because you're not stuck. You're not stuck and you're not alone. And it's okay to be afraid. And it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to not have a clue. But if you're trying and then you're trying to change and you're trying to do better, that is better than nothing. Mental health healing takes time and it doesn't happen overnight. Mental health can take 20, 30, 40 years, 10 days. It really depends on what your issue is. Um Trauma, I'm sorry, will never heal. But there's ways of working around it to where it doesn't really affect you. Living in the moment. For a lot of you that struggle with keeping yourself in the moment, I would advise you to definitely some people use rubber bands, others like to use pieces of string. Put something on or have something that symbolizes your I'm here moments and kind of, fidget on it and remind yourself, I'm here, I'm here now, In this moment, I have control of this moment. I'm not worrying about the future. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm here in this moment. And focus on the things that are important for you at that moment. Don't jump ahead and don't worry about what's behind. Just focus your mindset on the moment. When you start to get anxiety, you're going to stop what you're doing. You're going to breathe and you're going to count to 10. And you're going to do that about 3 or 4 times, maybe even five, until you start to feel calm. Anxiety is just your brain overthinking and over processing. So calm yourself, breathe, breathe. Um, if you feel like you're having a panic attack, yet again, catch yourself and say, I'm in this moment. I have control. Nothing is bothering me. I am safe. I am okay. I am fine. And believe that because you're the one saying it. It's coming from you, and you're the one that needs that reassurance that everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. The world is not ending because your subconscious mind is trying to attack you. Um, Another thing that we tend to lose track of when it comes to supporting others, a lot of our friends and a lot of our families, they could be experiencing things that they're not telling us. Best way to know when something is wrong with someone that you know that's close to you, um, is when they become distant, when they become an introvert and they don't become very talkative. They don't express their feelings and they tend to shy away from conversations that lead up to asking if they're okay. Um, Another thing that needs to be mentioned is when you are around others, including yourself, you need to express, but also take in that it's okay to talk about things that are uncomfortable. Um, my husband and I have come up with this way where every day we tend to do a mental check. Um, where I ask him if he's okay and how he's feeling, and he will tend to do the same thing with myself. We made it a custom to give each other's hugs every single day. They don't have to have a conversation, just a hug will do. A hug says a lot of things. A hug says, I love you. A hug says, I care. A hug says, I'm here for you. A hug says, I feel you. A hug says, take as much time as you need. And a lot of the time, that's what we really need is just maybe just a hug, not so much a conversation. Sometimes we don't need to conversate about what we're going through. It's very hard for a lot of us to speak on what we're experiencing, and we don't really always know how to articulate what we're experiencing with words. So we accept the hug. Another great thing to do when it comes to mental health and awareness is start journaling what you're feeling and start journaling and expressing why you feel the way you feel and what caused you to have these feelings, so that you can start working on them. So if you're dealing with triggering people, then maybe it's time to start stepping away from those people that cause these triggers. Um or maybe you might have to start building boundaries. Boundaries play a big role with mental health as well too. So boundaries for me. So great explanation. A couple of years ago, I was dealing with a family that was connected to my people, and they were full of drama, and they were very toxic. And I mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, it was just too much for me to take on with with my health and my family and all the things that I was already experiencing. Um, but then trying to throw on top of me someone else's drama or someone else's toxic ways, and craziness. I felt that that was crossing my boundaries because a lot of that had nothing to do with me, and I just chose to not place myself in that environment by removing myself out of that environment and keeping that environment away from me. Since doing that, I have come back to becoming myself again and feeling more in my mental space. My boundaries are now being met. For a lot of us that struggle with mental health, I would definitely encourage you with creating a boundary list. Create a boundary list of things that are important to you, your mental space, your personal space, your physical space, your work space, your friendship space, your family space. If you have children, your children's space. Parents, those that have teenage children or those that have adult children, it's okay for you to say no. It's okay for you to create boundaries with your children, and it's okay for them to get angry at you. They'll be okay, because if you're not mentally okay, you cannot do anything for anyone. And that includes your children. If your children are the one that's causing you to have PTSD, stress, anxiety, depression, when they're teenagers and adults, if and especially if they're at the point where they're out of control and there's only so much that you can do, and you've already tried, you've already done your best, you've already made necessary calls and moves and looking for the proper people to help you in these situations, sometimes you kind of have to just let go and let God, because if you don't, these situations will cause you a lot of mental breakdown, because you're trying to figure out a solution where there isn't any when you've tried everything. And you can't help those that don't want to be helped, and you can't help those that don't want to be saved. And at some point there comes a point where you have to just let it go and let God. Um and that goes for family outside of, children, moms, moms and dads, because I also know dads out here that are the moms. um I am well aware of, us as women, we get stuck with a lot of responsibility of the children, but also dads, they tend to get stuck with a lot of responsibility of raising the children, take caring of the home, and then take care of themselves. And it's not like it's something new, it's just not talked about, but there's a lot of men who get stuck becoming the baby mama. They become the nurturer, the caretaker, the responsibilities. The fathers always end up the ones that care for the children, they end up playing that role of multi, and they start to step into our shoes as the mothers and realize what we go through on a day-to-day basis, and they tend to praise us because how do we do it all? Well, a lot of you dads are beginning to learn how we do it all and experience what we're experiencing and know what it feels like to be the baby mama. When you end up having to be the dad who's the baby mama. Um, so I commend you dads who are going through mental issues as well. I have a few loved ones around me who are dads that are experiencing some mental stuff right now. Hey, I'm so sorry. She tends to do too much. That are also going through stuff right now, and I commend you guys for still sticking in there and trying to just be okay. Now, moving towards the workplace, like when it comes to workplace and it comes to the environment of telling people no, that's okay. You have to set boundaries at work too, and don't feel like you can't set boundaries because your coworkers are not going to like you. Okay, then they don't like you. You're not meant to go to work to have fun. You're there to work and get paid and go home. Um and then when it comes to like post COVID, we're still dealing with COVID out there, and that's a whole scary situation as well. A lot of us have had to learn how to deal with our families and deal with our friends and deal with our everyday to day lives when COVID hit. After the pandemic and everything changed, it was hard for a lot of us to kind of find a routine and get back to normal. I don't think it'll ever be normal again. COVID has definitely changed the world as we know it, and then it just kind of pushed us and shoved us into the new world of technology. So I guess out with the old and in with the new, which is even more reason why we need to definitely be on top of our mental health because the world is evolving, it's changing, and it's molding to something that's really scary. And protecting your mental health is like a big thing right now. So start journaling, start writing down what you feel, start expressing what triggers you, who triggers you, why it triggered you, what's triggering you. Um, when you can start pointing it out, you can start healing it. When you can start seeing it, you can start talking about it. When you start talking about it, you can start freeing yourself from that bondage and that hurdle that many of us tend to feel like it's we can't get over that hurdle of like stagnation of mental health. That's not always true. We just find better ways on handling these situations and healing ourselves from these situations that we feel like we're not allowed to heal ourselves from. Mental health plays a big role with our everyday life. Like, if we're trying to function, um we can only function with one task at a time, one problem at a time. And that's crazy to say that because we're supposed to be multifaceted people that can do all these magical wonderful things, but we can't do any of that if we can't think straight, and especially if we don't feel right. So meditate more, start taking meditation baths, start painting, express what you feel, express how you feel through art. That is one of the greatest ways you can release repressed feelings. Um Start dancing more, start listening to music more. Not so much music with words. I would suggest to kind of do the classical thing or maybe meditation music. Start getting into yoga, um, exercising more. A healthy diet also plays a big role with your mental health. You are what you eat. So if you're putting garbage in your body, then your mental health is going to be struggling because it has nothing nourishing and healthy um to help your mental. Um Watch what you watch, be careful what you watch and be careful on what you hear on a day-to-day basis. That plays a big role on your mental health. The music that you listen to definitely does. What you see and are subjected to every single day plays a big role with your psyche as well. Seeing is believing. So if you tend to see things that are very negative on a regular basis, then the mental will start to just function and behave in a very negative way. um if you're used to being a very angry person, you need to start humbling yourself by not allowing the things that frustrate you to get to you. Okay, if this piece of paper is frustrating me because I can't fold it, I'm gonna put it down and I'm gonna leave it alone and I'm gonna walk away from it and I'm gonna focus on me and breathe for a bit and then I'm gonna go back to this piece of paper and I'm gonna attempt to try to fold it until I can finally get it right. And when I can, I'll be fine. Um, it's like watching children that are angry at a video game because they can't get past that level, and then they wanna start destroying destroying things. That's not a way of doing it. So, you have to find constructive ways to transmute what you're feeling. Transmute those emotions, um, and transmute the way you speak about what you're experiencing too. Like, if you're a person that's going every day saying, "I struggle from this, that, and the other. I feel bad or I feel like I can't do this." Don't do that. Um it's okay to try things. Not everything works. If you didn't do it perfect, that doesn't mean you're a failure. That just means maybe try it again different next time. Maybe say it differently next time or reconstruct it in a way that may work better this time. Don't be afraid to not reach out to someone for help. If you feel that you're declining, if you feel that your mental health is falling in an area that you are afraid to be by yourself, I would say definitely reach out. Right below here, there's a link that's scrolling. Text 988, the suicide and cross crisis hotline. If you feel like you're lost, confused, struggling, hurting, mentally, physically, and emotionally drained, and you've already given enough fight and you feel like you have nothing else left in you, seek the hotline because you're not alone. And a lot of us are going through it. And I can vouch for one of those. Um, about almost 4 years, I would say about three, almost 4 years now. I went through something that was very real and I experienced it. And I still question it to this day on what exactly happens. Um, I went through some kind of mental breakdown about almost 3, 4 years ago. Um, when it comes to spirituality, I tie it together, but today we're not talking about spirituality. We're talking about mental health, and so part of what I went through had to do with spiritual stuff, but the other part of that was because my vibration was at such a low level because I was already dealing with anxiety and I was already dealing with stress and I was already dealing with panic attacks and I was already just a very depressed person at that point. I felt like I had no options or help or I wasn't being heard and respected. And so for less than 7 days, I went through a complete mental breakdown and my mental tapped out. And I ended up seeking therapy 5 years prior to this happening. And myself, I'm a therapist, but I ended up helping I ended up having help from my therapist, letting me know that what I experienced was um, just my brain having an overload of stress. And I wasn't expressing what I was feeling. So it got to me in such a way that it became very dangerous. Um, and I didn't realize that mental health and not talking about or expressing what I was feeling could turn into what it had turned into. Now that I know and I have a better understanding on those repressed feelings I wasn't talking about, and not so much that I was talking about anything to do with the past, because what I was experiencing was all stuff that was dealing within the current. But it was just so many things on top of so many different things that was happening at the same time. It became too much on me. So don't feel afraid to tell others, hey, I'm not okay. My mental is not stable. I don't feel the greatest. And I really just I need support right now. And seek the ones that you know are gonna listen to you. Not communicate, not talk back, not give you an answer. You don't want any of that. You want someone who's gonna listen to you and just listen to you and maybe give you a hug, and that's about it. So moving forward for mental health, what is one thing that I want you guys to do? I want you guys to start journaling. Before I leave you guys today, I definitely want you to start journaling. Get a journal, get a notebook, get your computer, your tablet, your phone. I don't care what it is. Whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're going through, start writing it down. Start expressing it to yourself. Start looking at the bigger picture. Start pointing out the problems. Isolate those problems so you can see them and then start making adjustments to fix these issues that are not being paid attention to. How to notice it in other people. When they stop talking, worry. When they stop contacting to you, worry. When they become isolated, worry. Check up on your people. Your people are not always going to tell you they're not okay. And they're not always going to express it on social media. So you'll never really know what someone's going through unless you take the time to really reach out and ask someone. And if you're not okay, reach out to anyone you trust that'll protect what you're saying and you feel confidence in confiding what you're telling them. Um, it's okay to not be okay. We're just people living and trying to understand life and get through it. And it's not the easiest thing. Mental health awareness. So I hope that helped a lot of you. mental health is not easy, and it's hard to talk about it. And as we go on and we go further in our process of understanding, I will open up more and more about what I experienced and the things that I feel I could talk about. As I feel more comfortable with all of you guys, I will definitely start to express more and more what I experienced and how I got through it and how I choose to heal each and every one of you every single day. Um, 10 minutes before we leave, then. So, I'm a life coach, I'm a minister, I'm an author of a self help book called 21 Steps for Change When Life Gives You Lemons, Work, Build, Love by Odyssey. That book is a journal, it's a manual, and it's a testimony of who I was and who I'm trying to be. And I help others reconstruct the way their lives used to be to what their lives should be now by pointing out to you what you're experiencing and how you can change it. So let's interact with each other every single day by saying, I can, I am, and I will. I love myself. I love who I am, and I love who I'm becoming. And every single day is a new day for change and rediscovery. So, with that being said, guys, mental health matters. Ask Indigo on the Small Business Network podcast. And if you need help, seek, text 988 Suicide Awareness Hotline for help. Bye, guys.